Now that the Money in the Bank event is in the rearview mirror, we can look forward to the next event coming up, and that is SummerSlam. It is one of my favorite events of the year, basically one of my favorite events in WWE. One of those marquee matchups will include Gunther, the 2024 King of the Ring winner, as he cashes in essentially his championship opportunity against the World Heavyweight Champion. If you're anything like me, you kind of play the whole what if game in your head, and that got me thinking about previous King of the Ring winners. And if they had a championship opportunity attached to their King of the Ring victory, who would be the champions that they would be facing at that year's SummerSlam? So go ahead, sit back and relax and join me, Jose Ramos Jr., as we go down every winner of the King of the Ring event and seeing who they would have faced at SummerSlam for a world title shot. But before we begin, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to keep up to date with all the pro wrestling content that is produced on this channel. And with that being said, let's go ahead and start the video. So for the purpose of this video, I'm going to be focusing on the King of the Ring winners from 1993 and on. I know there have been previous King of the Ring winners prior to the pay-per-view event being introduced, but just for the sake of continuity and the SummerSlam event itself, we're going to go from 1993 and on. And with that being said, that'll be beginning with Bret the Hitman Hart, who won the King of the Ring tournament in 1993. This was a couple months after he would lose the WWE Championship at WrestleMania 9 to Yokozuna, who coincidentally enough had lost his championship to Hulk Hogan just minutes later, and what was a very controversial decision by WWE, but would be rectified at the King of the Ring event itself, as not only was it at the event that Bret Hart would win the tournament, but Yokozuna would defeat Hollywood Hulk Hogan for the WWE Championship, and that would have set up a rematch at SummerSlam 93. Of course, as it currently stands, we know that Lex Luger was the one that would challenge Yokozuna for the title. But how interesting would it have been if Bret Hart would basically exact his revenge at SummerSlam against Yokozuna, the man that cheated to beat him for that WWE title? I think if anything, it would be an early coronation of what WrestleMania 10 would have been, but it would have been very interesting to see how the timeline would have worked out and what matchup we would have led to at WrestleMania 10 had we received that rematch just months earlier at SummerSlam. And sticking with Bret the Hitman Hart, the following year in 1994, Bret Hart was the WWE Champion heading into SummerSlam, and his brother Owen Hart had just won the King of the Ring tournament, which sets up a matchup between the two brothers, a rematch of WrestleMania 10, the classic matchup between Owen and Bret. But the match already happens. At 94 SummerSlam, that is what happens. We got the classic steel cage match, one of the last times we would have seen the blue cage structure, and is regarded as one of the best steel cage matches of all time. I think the WWE obviously got their decision right when it came to choosing the main event for SummerSlam. Given that technically the main event was The Undertaker versus The Undertaker, we all remember 94 for this classic steel cage match, and I think they capitalized on the momentum that not only Bret Hart, but Owen Hart were in the middle of during 1994. So obviously I think it was the right choice to actually have this match move forward. In 1995, a very divisive, I don't even know if divisive is the word to use, but the King of the Ring winner was Mabel, who obviously would be known as Big Daddy V or Viscera, and he would actually in real life challenge Diesel, the WWE champion at that time, for the title in the main event of SummerSlam 95. So in this scenario, the King of the Ring winner did face the WWE champion at that time, but it really wasn't the right decision. You had a tournament that had Shawn Michaels involved, The Undertaker was even involved, and they decided to crown Mabel, obviously knowing in hindsight that that was the wrong decision. You can't blame them, because I'm thinking WWE wanted to have the opportunity to crown a new star and create a new main eventer in the process to be able to compete against the likes of the previous wrestlers that I mentioned. But obviously knowing what we know and seeing how the match would turn out, Mabel versus Diesel certainly wasn't really a highlight of SummerSlam 95. Hell, it wouldn't even be the best match of the pay-per-view. As we all know, Shawn Michaels versus Razor Ramon, their rematch for the ladder match at the Intercontinental Championship really stole the show, and it's hard to talk about Diesel versus Mabel. So we'll just keep on moving on. In 1996, the ringmaster Steve Austin would win the King of the Ring tournament in what was a very memorable, legendary moment where he said Austin 316, and having him challenge for the WWE title would have been a great way to capitalize on that momentum that was already being created. the WWE champion at that time, Shawn Michaels. An early WrestleMania 14 preview, but what would have been interesting is seeing, these incarnations of the character. This wasn't the Stone Cold Steve Austin that we were so used to. This wasn't Shawn Michaels that we would see in 98 against Stone Cold. This was a babyface, Shawn Michaels, who had just won the title at WrestleMania 12, and a heel, Stone Cold Steve Austin, who had yet to really feud with Bret Hart. We were starting to hint and lead towards that direction, but it had not happened yet. I think personally it would have been a little too early for Stone Cold. I could see why people would want it, for sure, because of the level of anticipation, the hype surrounding around the event. But were they willing to have Shawn lose at SummerSlam 96 to Austin, and vice versa? You can't have Austin lose this early as the King of the Ring. You want to be able to capitalize on that momentum, as I mentioned, that he was already going through. Would it have been a hell of a match? Absolutely. But I think the way it worked out, Vader versus Shawn, I think it worked out. Obviously, there's a lot of controversy regarding Shawn Michaels in 96 and his treatment of Vader in that matchup. But for the case being of the characters and the gimmicks, I don't think you can have either one lose in a matchup head-to-head. Moving along, in 1997, the King of the Ring winner, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, which, fun fact, he was supposed to win in 1996, but due to the curtain call, that would be pushed a year later. Had Hunter Hearst Helmsley had challenged for the WWE title in 97, at SummerSlam he would have faced The Undertaker, who was the WWE champion, after winning it at WrestleMania 13. Again, this is another feud that would be a tale as old as time, really, in future years, as they would be two of the main stars of the Attitude Era, and throughout the 2000s. We would get a lot of Undertaker versus Triple H matchups, but again, this iteration of the character, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, who was the blue blood, and having him, the blue blood, and having him face The Undertaker, really would not have done him any favors. I don't think at this point in his career, Triple H was on par with characters like The Undertaker. And given that the actual match was, The Undertaker versus Bret Hart, with Shawn Michaels as the special guest referee, I don't think it gets any bigger than that matchup. And again, I'm a big proponent of, if you win the King of the Ring tournament, you don't want them to squash your momentum so early. I don't see any way how Hunter could have beaten The Undertaker, especially in 1997. He would not have ran with the title for another 2 years until 1999. So I think for the best part, we got the match that we needed. Having Hunter Hearst Helmsley would have been a little too early, and it would have hurt him, I think, the way it would have hurt Austin. And speaking of Stone Cold Steve Austin, in 1998, he was the WWE champion after winning at WrestleMania 14. He would have fought the King of the Ring winner, Ken Shamrock. This match is very intriguing because I don't think we ever got this on a big stage in a pay-per-view main event. So seeing what could have been done with Ken Shamrock, having him across the ring against a guy like Stone Cold Steve Austin, this would have been quite the brawl, especially because these two were baby faces running at that time. It would have been a unique clash of styles, and I would have been curious to see how the crowd would have reacted. Everyone was white hot for Stone Cold Steve Austin, but for some time there, Ken Shamrock was riding a wave of momentum himself. I don't know how it would have worked out long term for the matchup. Again, I look at it as Austin wins the match, and could credibility wise could have hurt Ken Shamrock. And obviously the matchup that we got was The Undertaker versus Stone Cold Steve Austin, in a match that really didn't deliver due to the concussion that Stone Cold had suffered mid-match. But it's just one of those cases of what if. Moving on, 1999 SummerSlam, very much similar to 98 SummerSlam. Stone Cold was the champion and would have been facing the King of the Ring winner, an unlikely winner in Billy Gunn. Now, unfortunately for Billy Gunn, the run that he had following his King of the Ring victory wasn't the best. A lot of people attribute it to the promo that The Rock had regarding Billy Gunn, essentially, burning down the wave of momentum that he'd gain after winning the tournament. Seeing him along the likes of Stone Cold, I don't think would have done him any favors as well. I like Billy Gunn, but as a main event star, as a main event caliber star, I don't think it would have worked with Stone Cold. Would I have liked to see it? Absolutely, I would have liked to. But for the stage of SummerSlam, it would not have worked. And you look at, again, the match that we got instead was a triple threat match. Stone Cold, Mankind, Triple H. It would be hard to not pass that up, being, the Billy Gunn matchup for the triple threat matchup. Again, I think they got it right with the triple threat match, but it's always interesting to see where we're looking at with these stars. If I'm crowning a new King of the Ring, I want to be able to give it to someone who can carry it for, at minimum, the next year. right? You want to capitalize on it, you want to showcase them, you want to elevate the concept of the tournament. That way it doesn't seem just like a novelty or a knockoff of what a traditional tournament win should be. In the year 2000, we kind of got the matchup that we're going to be fantasizing about here, and that would have been Kurt Angle versus The Rock for the WWE title. Of course, we got a version of this at SummerSlam 2000, but the only difference was Triple H was included in a triple threat match. Now, I think it's one of the best triple threat matches of all time that WWE presented, even if Kurt Angle, again, had a concussion mid-matchup. Kurt Angle at this time was riding his own wave of momentum, and I feel like that's a common theme when it comes to these King of the Ring winners. A lot of these guys are riding waves of momentum, and you don't want to stall it. The only issue with that is, if it was a one-on-one versus The Rock, that would have benefited Kurt Angle much more. Because if you remember, he was only 2 months away, and that was in October, where he would win the championship by defeating The Rock. Given that, had they capitalized on that at SummerSlam, I think that does wonders for Kurt. I think it's even better for Kurt, because if you're able to beat The Rock one-on-one, what does that say about you as a character, you as a competitor? But again, we got a semblance of that, and we got really a preview of it, because we wouldn't get it for another couple months. 2001 was very notorious for being recognized as the year of the invasion. It wasn't really the best of times for the WWE after just defeating WCW and ECW, because they lacked star power when it came to WCW's end, such as, the NWO. We had guys like Scott Steiner, Sting, all holding out because they had guaranteed contracts. So, in essence, Stone Cold Steve Austin, another time we see him on this list, is the WWE champion. He's turning heel. He's a member of the Alliance. And he would have fought the 2001 winner, Edge. This has a lot of intrigue attached to it. Again, another matchup we never saw on a high-profile pay-per-view event. Edge at this time against a Stone Cold Steve Austin, I think it could have worked, especially character-wise. Around this time, Stone Cold was really paranoid. He had this new attitude towards him where he thought everyone was out to get him. And then you had Edge, who was the up-and-coming star, wanting opportunities, was a baby face. I think it would have worked well. I think their matchups would have meshed real well. Obviously, I think we know that Edge would have had to suffer a loss, which I'm not a fan of. You don't want to squander a King of the Ring win just for the sake of a matchup, which is why a lot of times we didn't get these, proposed champion versus King of the Ring winner matchups because of the level of momentum that could be stalled. But regardless, Edge versus Austin, this is a match I really would want to see. And of all the matches we have seen so far on this list, this one ranks the highest, in my opinion. Moving along real quickly, 2002, this was the year that the King of the Ring tournament was actually for a title opportunity. If you remember correctly, Brock Lesnar would win the tournament and face The Rock, defeating him eventually at SummerSlam 2002 for the WWE Championship, beginning the reign of Lesnar as we would know it to come. I think it was the right call, it was the right decision, and in hindsight, how can you argue with it? Finally, in 2006, they would revive the King of the Ring concept, and these are going to be the years where it gets a little interesting, because a lot of times they didn't take place right before SummerSlam. Some of these take place in April, some of these take place in the fall. So for the purpose of this video, we'll just be saying the winner of the King of the Ring tournament versus the champion at that time. Let's just say they were to win the tournament and you immediately become the number one contender. And for the case in point here, Booker T wins and he would basically face Rey Mysterio, who was the World Heavyweight Champion at that time. Of course, we know that would happen at the Great American Bash, which they caught on. They had the right idea. You crown a new King of the Ring and you basically put the rocket to him and let him skyrocket. He beats Rey Mysterio and it becomes this King Booker gimmick, which I think in terms of longevity is one of the best King of the Ring winners of all time. I don't know how you can argue it. Not only could he go in the ring, but on the mic and just character work. This worked real well for Booker T. Now in 2008, I think it gets interesting. William Regal wins the King of the Ring tournament, and at that time, Triple H would just win the WWE Championship at the Backlash event. Having Triple H versus William Regal, I think it would have worked. This was at the time that William Regal was on his best heel run. I think him against Triple H, the history that they had in WCW, especially being that these two were recognized for their blue blood characters, I think it would have potential. Again, it's one of those things where we know Triple H would have won. I highly doubt they would have allowed William Regal to win the WWE Championship at this time. Maybe if it was the world title or the ECW title, you would have him, have a run with it. But against Triple H, no, I don't think it would have worked. I think he would have suffered a loss. Triple H versus William Regal, definitely a level of interest, but I think the outcome for sure is without a doubt. In 2010, Sheamus would win the King of the Ring tournament, and basically, in this hypothetical scenario, would earn a WWE title shot against The Miz. Of all the matchups here, this is one of the ones I look least forward to, especially given the characters at this time. The Miz, who was his, annoying heel self, which works for him, don't get me wrong. But if you asked me back in 2010, if I would have wanted to see Sheamus versus The Miz, no, I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to see it, right? I don't think it would have worked. I wouldn't have been a fan of it. And then on the flip side, if you were to look at it from, the SmackDown side, which is a possibility, then he would have been facing Kane. Again, it doesn't work for me, brother. So it's like, it's a lose-lose. It worked out well for Sheamus, won the King of the Ring tournament, became the WWE champion in June of 2010. So I think it worked out well. We look at how everything worked out in the long run, but in that immediate time period, him versus The Miz, him versus Kane, no thank you. In 2015, the WWE saw the opportunity and crowned Wade Barrett as their latest King of the Ring. Unfortunately, in real life, they would do nothing with Wade Barrett. They had him as a member of the League of Nations, one of the more forgettable stables in WWE history. But had they, done the whole championship opportunity along with the crown, he would be facing Seth Rollins. That is an interesting matchup. I know at the time, Seth Rollins had just won the title. He was, the Authority's biggest heel. But just think of it match quality wise. Wade Barrett versus Seth Rollins. This is another one of those matchups that I'm intrigued into. You give them about 20 minutes. I could see them pulling off these crazy moments in the matchup, somehow leading to the curb stomp. I don't know. But the potential between a Barrett and Rollins matchup, sign me up. I would be very much interested into it. Now we're back to the negatives in 2019 as Baron Corbin won the King of the Ring tournament. Who would he face? Well, at that time, Brock Lesnar had just won the WWE title, defeating Kofi Kingston in 4 seconds, and yeah, no. Especially remembering how Baron Corbin's character was in 2019, we know it would have been a squash. Brock Lesnar would have dispatched him in 10 seconds. We'll give him a couple extra seconds just because he's a little bigger than Kofi Kingston. Yeah, no, this one is definitely one that I can skip, and I would not be looking forward to it. And in fact, even if it happened, I'd probably want to erase it from my memory. Finally, in 2021, Xavier Woods would finally win the King of the Ring tournament, something he wished for quite some time. And I feel like this was an opportunity that they just gave it to him, basically as a consolation prize. Big E is a WWE champion. Kofi Kingston won the WWE championship. Xavier Woods, I don't think he's ever going to win the WWE title. Maybe a run at the World Championship. I don't know. But this, I felt, was definitely like a consolation prize for him. Had he had won it and had that championship opportunity, Roman Reigns was the champion at that time, and being that he held the title for nearly 4 years, I think the result in their matchup, it's no secret. It really isn't. And we did get somewhat of a, situation where it resembled this. But aside from that, there's not really that much interest in it. Don't get me wrong. I love Xavier Woods. I love the New Day. But again, very similar to that Brock Lesnar, Baron Corbin situation, there's not really much appeal to it. Yeah. But what do you guys think? What would have been your favorite potential matchup given the King of the Ring winners against the WWE Champion? Who do you think will emerge victorious at SummerSlam this year? Do you think Gunther will follow the path of Brock Lesnar by winning the tournament and becoming the next world champion? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But until then, thank you guys for joining me in this video. My name is Jose Ramos Jr. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.